Welcome everyone to Charlie's Happy Zone. But also, we're not just here for Charlie's Happy Zone, we're here for the AWS Brighton User Group. So welcome everyone to the 5th meetup of the AWS Brighton User Group. Thank you for braving the lovely weather and missing out on a lovely sunset that I'm sure is going to be taking place outside. And thank you also for braving the train strikes, those of you who made it. I'm sure that's affected our attendance this evening. Let's take a little look through the agenda. We're already running late, but that's okay. We've done some networking. We've had some pizza and beer. I'm going to give you a little introduction to AWS Brighton User Group and Silicon Brighton. I'll also give you a little introduction to what they're doing for the community in the Brighton area. Then, unfortunately, we've got a completely different agenda to the one that we promoted for this evening. So apologies, we haven't deliberately got you here on the false pretenses. We've just had a catalogue of disasters. Unfortunately, our main speaker was taken ill yesterday and let us know he couldn't make it. And the Fringe Act that we promised, what is it they say before they go on stage? Break a leg? That's actually what they've done. So unfortunately, they did break a leg, took it literally, and have not been able to make it here this evening. However, the show must go on. So John has stepped in with a talk that he'd previously written for internal use. But he is going to tell you all about AWS organizations and how to make them not suck. So landing zones, AWS organizations, hopefully you all know what I'm talking about, and hopefully that will be of interest to you. And then in place of our Fringe Act, we're going to have a Q&A after John's talk, and we've got a quiz that we've recycled. There's a lot of new faces in the room, so I'm hoping that most of you didn't do the quiz first time round and therefore won't have any advantage over the people that haven't seen it before. So it's the logo quiz that I have queued up. It's the logo quiz, yeah. So if you are solutions architects or you've done any kind of AWS certifications, etc., we're going to show you some logos and we're going to ask you which services those logos are for. So no lines between any of the logos, just logos. And we have got a little bit of AWS swag to give to the winners. So got some more swag, got swag there, got swag there, swag here, swag there, swag everywhere. So that is what we plan to do this evening. The event is being recorded. If you don't wish to be included in photographs or video content, please let me or one of the Silicon Brighton team know. We are very kindly being hosted this evening by the Works Group. And I don't know if anybody from the Works Group, no, nobody wants to say anything. So the Works Group, for those of you that don't know, is a serviced office environment, a co-working space. So if you're looking for somewhere to hang out and get away from your home working environment, you could come here. They've got a lovely cafe. They've got a bar, which normally serves alcohol, but didn't tonight. But we managed to get some alcohol anyway, so all is good. Yeah, they've got co-working space, they've got serviced offices, etc. So if you're interested in somewhere different to work, have a chat with the lovely, kind people at the Work Group. Or if you just want to pop in for a coffee when you happen to be in town, the cafe is also open to the public. So this is our first event at the Works Group. I think it works quite well. So far, so good. So hopefully we'll be back for our future events at the Works Group as well. AWS Brighton User Group is supported by Logicata and Silicon Brighton. Logicata is my business. I'm the CEO of Logicata. John is the lead cloud engineer at Logicata. Logicata is an AWS partner that provides managed services for AWS. So we help small to medium businesses run their application workloads in the AWS cloud by taking away all of the boring infrastructure management so that their team can focus on developing their applications and writing code. I thought you were going to say something then, John. So I was well, John finds it interesting. So, luckily we have people like John who, find things interesting that other people find boring. And there's a whole bunch of things that John can talk to you about that I find really boring, not just AWS, but there we go. Yeah, I go running. That's pretty boring. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and cycling. Yeah. But yeah, Logicata is sponsoring the beer and the pizza tonight. So help yourselves to beer, pizza, soft drinks, etc. behind the bar afterwards. And we may even go to the pub if anybody fancies a drink after the event. So feel free to hang around for that. And I'm just going to hand the mic over to Charlie at Silicon Brighton, who's going to tell you a little bit more about what Silicon Brighton are doing for the Brighton tech community.
Thank you so much, Carl. Yeah, my name is Charlie. I work in events and community engagement for Silicon Brighton, and this is the happy place right in between the two. And we are the hosts of Brighton and Hove's tech sector. We support over 30 different meetup groups in the tech community across the city here. All of our events are free to join, available to people at all levels, and they're all hybrid. So as well as being able to join us in the room here tonight, we live stream all of the events. And then once we've done the live stream, we put the video up on YouTube for you to watch it back afterwards and share with all your friends, of course. All of the work that we do would not be possible without the support of our sponsors, all of whom you can see here. If the company that you are working with at the moment are not on this list, please ask yourselves why, and maybe consider talking to your line manager and finding out if there's a way that you could support us. These are our values. I'll leave you guys to read these through whilst I'm talking. But we look to uphold all of these at all of our events and throughout all of our content. And if you feel like at any point that these aren't being upheld, please come and talk to myself or my colleague Maureen, who's also here tonight. You can follow us on socials. We're on Insta, LinkedIn, Twitter/X, and TikTok, where we're pushing out a load of fantastic content. And we have got a lot of events coming up. We've got something like 3 events every week for the entirety of May. Tomorrow we are at Runway East, another co-working space in Brighton, with PHP Sussex. And then on Thursday, we're doing Brighton Pi, and it's also JavaScript Brighton on the same night, so you could do the double if you fancy it. And then next week on Tuesday, we are at Platform 9 to do a collaboration between 2 of our groups, Brighton AI and Sussex Azure. And that's literally like the next 7 days. Then there's loads that's going on for the rest of the month. So it's very busy. It's going to be fantastic. The best place to stay up to date with all of this is on our Slack community. If you're new here tonight and you've not come to an event before, please scan this QR code where you can join our Slack community and stay in the conversation with... does AWS have its own Slack channel? AWS user group has its own Slack channel where you can talk all things AWS and also find out other events that are going on and all of the news that gets posted within the community. And finally, please join the AWS user group meetup group so that you can be kept up to date and in the loop with all of the events that we've got going on within the group. That's me. I'm going to hand back to you, Carl. Thank you guys so much for coming, and see you again soon.
Thank you, Charlie. Before I hand over to John to waffle for a bit, just back onto AWS Brighton User Group. This is a community initiative. We're nothing to do with AWS. Logicata is an AWS partner, but we're not sponsored by AWS. We do get a little bit of swag from AWS, like these lovely T-shirts to say that we're organizing the user groups. And we do get access to speakers from AWS. So we have had a couple of speakers down from AWS before. Our intention is really to showcase community stories of people who are using AWS in the community. But ultimately, this is your community. So please, any feedback you've got, anything that you would like to see at future AWS user group events, we will take that all on board. We had some feedback in the past that people wanted some interactive sessions where they can actually get their laptops out and get stuck in to some AWS technology. So we're hoping to bring that to our next user group event, which should have had a slide and doesn't, but we'll come back to you on when that is. But you can find it on the user group. I think it is in July, the next event. So we're hoping to pull together something a little bit different for that one with some technical workshop angles to it. But that's just one of the things that we can do. So, you know, if there's other things, if you want to hear from people at AWS, we can get people from AWS along. If you want to hear from people in the community, we can get people from the community along. If you want to get hands on keyboards and get stuck into a workshop or a jam or something like that, we can try and make that happen as well. So this is not about us preaching to you or selling anything to you. It's intended to be a community initiative where we all get something out of it together. So that's it for the user group. John, now it's over to you to waffle for a bit with your, thank you very much, John, by the way, for stepping in at the 11th hour with a talk that you just happened to have. Here's one he made earlier, I think is the catchphrase.
Yeah, it's Blue Peter. Oh, yeah, clicker. It's Blue Peter, but it's less swish than that. And a lot fewer dogs, which is disappointing. I'll have a beer, thanks. Yeah, go on. Yes, I'm actually ordering whilst I'm presenting. It's fine. It's fine. Right, John's waffling for a bit. But first, a quick change. Yes, I am doing this. Got to be done, because I might be the co-lead of this spectacular event. Go on, get in shot. Good lad. But I'm not here in that capacity for the next, I don't know, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. I honestly have no idea how long this is going to run. I've never done this talk before. It'll all be all right. It'd be fine. It'd be fine. So here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about making AWS organizations not suck, because they suck. Right. I mean, he knows why they suck. Anybody else in the room have the misfortune of working with AWS organizations? Good, that's one person. I'll go with it. We're going well, doing well. All right, quick agenda. What's a landing zone? Why'd you need one? How'd you build one? Challenges. And then the last bit is how you make it not suck with org formation. Big fan of this project, really like it. Right. The one person in the room that knows what a landing zone is, do you agree with my diagram? You should do, because it's AWS's. I nicked it. Yeah, so yeah, in short, it is a secure, well-architected, multi-account AWS environment that is scalable and secure. God, that sounds so bad, doesn't it? But there we go. If you've been to other events, Brighton Cloud did a little bit on this in your baselining. One account is not enough. It was 5 years ago. Probably wasn't 5 years ago, but it was kind of okay 5 years ago. It's not anymore, even in small companies, because you've got to worry about logins and security and tracking access and segregation of duties and responsibilities, and segregation of access, and so on and so on and so on. I could go on ad nauseum, but I'm not going to. Another diagram, again, lifted from AWS. I will caveat, this slide is about a year old, because the whole thing was made in about 40 minutes this morning from 2 presentations that were never meant for public consumption. But, you know, we'll get through. A landing zone through organizations. You create the organization, create an account, add an account, group them together, apply policies, turn services on, blah, 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 blah. Another what's a landing zone. I like this diagram. Was that the laser? Do you have a laser on there? Oh, I pushed a button. I was hoping for a laser. Can you come and give me your thumbprint? Oh. I was hoping for a laser, and it doesn't have a laser, does it?
Has a spotlight thing. We need to get that back on stream. Yeah, sorry.
This is slick. I really thought there was a laser in that. That's embarrassing.
No, it's got a digital laser. No, but it's gone off the stream, so hold on. It's gone off the screen. Right, okay.
I'm terribly sorry to YouTube, and I'm going to apologize to both cameras now. I'm very sorry. Oops. So talk amongst yourselves. Anyone know any jokes? No, nothing. Tough crowd. Oh God, I need to spend more time in the gym.
Don't click that button again.
Don't click that. Yeah, forwards and backwards, but not that one, because it's a virtual pointer, not a laser. That's stupid. Why couldn't you buy one with a deadly laser? Okay, so I'm going to point with my finger instead, and we'll get through this. I like this picture. Again, it's nicked. I don't agree with it 100%, but I do like it because it kind of shows you some really cool stuff. So what's a landing zone? Multiple accounts, single sign-on, central logging, central guardrails, all the other things, alerting, billing, anything you can centralize, you should centralize, because why not? I mean, excuse me. In small accounts, small orgs, it kind of matters a little bit less, but certainly once you get up to enterprise scale, all of a sudden you've got 1,000 accounts, and how the hell are you going to do anything with that data? Centralize it. Well, hey, we've got a late entrance, and I'm not going to make you embarrassed at all.
It's David from Silicon Brighton, everyone!
Hey! Is that working? That's working. So why? I mean, why would you bother? Because, I mean, for a hobbyist, debatable. Once you start getting to a point where you need to care about this sort of thing, lots and lots of organizations are being pushed into complying with the alphabet soup of standards. What have we got? We've got PCI, payment card, GDPR, ISO 27001, SOC 2, HIPAA, blah, 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 blah. Boring. Other things. Best practice, it's best practice, and it gives you a nice, secure framework to cover your security and your audits. Like I said earlier, segregation of workloads, cross-account stuff, and so on. A couple of ways of doing it. You use Control Tower. Has anyone here had the misfortune of using Control Tower? Oh, how I envy you, sweet summer children. Struggling. Problems with Control Tower. It's not particularly flexible. It's a managed service by AWS, and it's a way of making an organization, but it is very prescriptive. So it's not flexible at all. It will make this particular structure, and it's, if I got the right button, and it makes that structure. That's the exact structure it makes. It will make that, and it will only make that. It doesn't do anything else. You can't manage it through infrastructure code. That's important if you're a platform person, because you want to manage everything through code, because, well, why not? ClickOps is the devil. It is of the devil. It is evil. We don't like it. So through code. Minor caveat for things like Account Factory for Terraform, but new APIs. But this slide is a year old, so they didn't exist back then. And you're never really sure what's happening, because again, you go into the console, you push the go button, and you just get this "I'm doing things" bar, and it doesn't really tell you what it's doing. And then you'll wait an hour and it'll fail, because obviously that's just there to screw with you, I think. The other way of doing it, custom built landing zone. This is a lot more work, and this is why AWS kind of push Control Tower. And again, I don't like Control Tower because I've had to use it, and I worked on the biggest deployment of landing zones before Control Tower, and I didn't like that either. That was great fun. But custom built landing zone, you can do it yourself, or you can work with a partner like Logic. There we go. There's the plug. That's paid for the event. Someone come hire us, please. Yeah, I'm too busy, far too busy. But you can do it yourself, or you can get a partner, work with a partner, work with a partner, and you kind of build it all yourself. And the tool you use for that, you can either do it through Terraform, if you're a bit mad, or you can use org formation, which I quite like. So building with Control Tower, again, love a diagram, me, especially when they're nicked. Here's roughly what it looks like. You have Control Tower in the middle. It talks to organizations, talks to IAM Identity Center, formerly known as AWS SSO, because single sign-on made sense. IAM Identity Center confuses people, because IAM Identity, yeah. And the permissions are still SSO if you look at policies, which is great. So they had to change the name just to be difficult, I think. It works through stack sets, which again are of the devil because they're horrid, hideous things. Anyone work with a stack set? No? That's what I was feeling the room out for. This is a bit podcast. It's a bit podcasty, isn't it? Let's start with a definition. Right, so CloudFormation stack set is a way of deploying the same CloudFormation stack to lots of different accounts and lots of different regions all at the same time, and they're ugly as sin, because if you do them through something like CloudFormation, so you can do a CloudFormation stack to create a stack set, you basically have to put the whole thing in plain text, in like nested YAML. It's ugly as sin, and I don't like them, and there's lots of trust policies to deal with, and just bleh. Other bits and pieces that are less interesting and less contentious. Service catalog, useful for big orgs, so you can kind of say, here's what we're allowed to turn on, here's what we're not turning on. Again, in these big deployments, that's kind of handy because you don't necessarily want everyone having access to every service. We don't use Redshift. We're not going to turn that on. You can't spin up a big bill, for instance. OUs are just organizational units, and it's ways of provisioning things. And then there's ways of baselining the accounts, and you sort your cross-account roles and kind of all the rest of it. And you kind of just push go, and it does it some of the time. And that's my biggest bugbear with it. It's inconsistent. It's getting better. And no doubt, John Topper, if you ever watch this, I still don't like it. You won't convince me. He gets that joke. Mr. Chopper runs a rival company and a rival UG. But yeah, challenges with Control Tower. It's inflexible, opaque, can't be driven by code. Caveat for Account Factory for Terraform, which is more for baselining after you've ended the account, and APIs, which only came out a little while ago. It does take skill and experience to design and develop a good landing zone, because the out-of-the-box go button, basically all the guardrails you get protect Control Tower from its users, which is important, it's worth doing, but it doesn't really give you a lot. It'll turn off some regions, and it'll prevent you from turning Control Tower off. Cool, thanks. Why did I bother with this? Okay, whatever. There's a lot of best practice to encapsulate into a landing zone, so it's kind of more of the same. And the whole don't repeat yourself, dry, concept of being dry. No one wants moist code. Hey, we got a giggle. We got a giggle. Moist is an awful word, so if I can get it into a presentation, I'm going to go for it. There's a lot of repeating yourself with Control Tower, because it's just lots of go back into console, click button. I'd like another account, click button. Want a third account, click button. It's horrid. But there is a better way, and we have a product for it, and that's the only mention of it, because I thought, well, I best talk about it a little bit. We call it Logizone. We're narcissists. We name everything after ourselves that we can get away with. It's called Logizone. It's a landing zone by Logicata. Bosh, done. We use org formation for this. Org formation is an open source product. It's just on GitHub. There's various links in the pres, so you will see them eventually. But if you just Google org formation, you'll find it. There's a Slack community, which I'm semi-active in. I did some of the work for the Node 14, 16 deprecation for the testing for that, because it's built in Node. So I did some of that, and it's good. And the chap that kind of built it and runs it, Olaf, is really responsive and just generally a good chap. It's basically CloudFormation on steroids, and I love that description because it's exactly what it is. You write it like CloudFormation, it looks like CloudFormation, it smells and feels like CloudFormation, it executes like CloudFormation, but it does quite a lot more than that. Any CloudFormation users? Way, one in the middle. Meh. So it has its own version. So CloudFormation has the 2019 blah, 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 blah version. OrgFormation has its own version. It's -OC on the end of it, and then you get OrgFormation. But only OrgFormation knows how to interpret it. It's important because OrgFormation can just run native CloudFormation, or it can run its own versions of things, which gives you access to a few other kind of niceties, ways of binding things to certain accounts. So you can tag an account and say, I want this to run on every account that's got that tag, please, which is kind of cool. Native CloudFormation doesn't support that. Stack sets do support that as of about 2 weeks ago, but we're getting there. It's organization aware, which is great. So again, with stack sets, you kind of just say, I want it to run on these accounts or everywhere or these regions or whatever. Org formation allows you to be kind of selective with that. So like I say, you can do it with tag selection, which is kind of cool, kind of handy. You can also kind of drive it the other way around. So if you're doing a trust policy, say for a role that every other account needs to have access to, you can iterate that, and it's about 3 lines, and it's really powerful, which is really handy if you're doing, and I don't recommend, well, I do recommend this because I do it. It's really handy if you're doing things like centralizing Terraform state, because what you can do is you can have a role that the backend can interact with, and it's assumed by whatever role you're running in Terraform with, and that's great because it means it's all centralized and it all just runs off over there, and it doesn't have access to do anything in any of the workload accounts, but it can still store its state. Brilliant, like a central state. You do it in both task files and templates, and those will make sense if you go and look at the organization, at the product, but you have templates, which looks like CloudFormation, and you have task files, which kind of look a bit like Ansible, if anyone's ever used that. It's just a list of, here's what we're going to run, you depend on this, you run before this, you're required to have these things, here's the various files that you care about, run in this order, so on and so on. Nice diagram. Pinch this one from org formation instead. So that's the one of the links. I don't know whether you get this pres or not, but if you'd be so kind as to go back and look on YouTube, I'm sure you could type it out and sit there and up the watch minutes. That'd be great. And there's a couple of interesting things going on here with org formation. So with Control Tower, if you have an org already, you can onboard accounts into Control Tower. But it's a bit faffy. You do it in the console. This is kind of my bugbear. It's all in the console. With org formation, doesn't matter what the state the organization is in, you run org formation init, and it will read the state of the organization. Presumably you have permission to do that, if you have permission to do that. And it will spit all of that data out into a YAML file, because everybody loves YAML files, don't they? Just, we get some agreements. It's not JSON because blur, and it's really not XML, thank Christ. Spits it all into a YAML file, and then from there, you can make updates, you can add tags, you can add whole accounts, do whatever you like. Run org formation update, and it will vend new accounts, it will update accounts, do all sorts of really cool stuff. Next thing that's kind of interesting is annotated templates. Right, okay. That made sense when I did it. This is the org formation version of the CloudFormation template, and it's called an annotated version of the template. And the idea being, you get access to a few other features that you don't have in native CloudFormation, which is the point around binding to multiple accounts and doing things like that. And then on top of that, if you start bringing in custom CloudFormation providers, don't know if provider is the right word, but we're going with it, you can start doing things that are not available in native CloudFormation at all. So things like setting alternate contacts on accounts, you can do through this. Things like, and that's really handy actually, because you can just sort of have a tag for here's my contact and just go through and just do them. It's brilliant. And you can do things like, what else am I talking about? I mean, think of something else that's interesting. Well, I find it all interesting, but I don't know if you lot will. Other cool stuff. You can do things with delegated admin. So again, I spoke at the start about delegating admin. If you're running, say, AWS Inspector, the best practice is to run it from a dedicated security management account, not the master account in the organization, because you don't want the master account in the org doing anything other than controlling your users, because that's just bad practice. And I see a camera, but of course I do, because I'm looking straight at it. It's like a superpower, but the world's worst one. And that's kind of handy. So what you do is you delegate the admin to the security account, and then the security account has full privileges to do that. You can do that through custom resources. Org formation has a whole bunch of them that they pre-rolled for you. So it's not strictly org formation, but it's sort of part of the wider project, and they're really handy. And that's what I kind of helped out with, because CloudFormation extensions, I think is the right word. They basically run Lambdas secretly in a CloudFormation owned account, which meant they were also subject to the Node 14 and 16 deprecation. So all of a sudden their extensions just started breaking, which was great. And then because CloudFormation has no real mechanism for sending you the error messages, you just got an internal error. And that's all you got. And that was just like, brilliant. And they're basically impossible to test outside of that because of the whole framework that it calls and gets called by and so on. Again, if anyone's used a custom resource for CloudFormation, no, cool. Need more serverless devs in the room. Jeez. Again, same problem. They're very hard to test, and they're very hard to write unit tests and wrappers around just because of how they're called and that kind of thing. But yeah, good examples there. Next one, perform tasks. This is running the tasks file. This is basically like your Ansible playbook, if you're familiar with Ansible. If you're not, get familiar with Ansible, because it's great. It's much better than things like Puppet and Chef, because they're awful. And this basically is a way of running lots of tasks all in sequence, and that can include updating your org, that can include vending new accounts, it can include turning services on, making sure that certain things are set, so you can have secure defaults, like I'm going to turn on IAM Access Analyzer for every account that I vend. I'm going to make sure that EBS volume encryption is mandatory for every account that I vend. I'm going to turn on and enable guard duty for every account you get the idea. It's a way of saying that every time I vend an account that matches this pattern, and this is how you sort of do, for regions and for accounts with tags, or this specific account, or accounts within an organizational unit, which is just like a breakdown of your account effectively. You can say, run these tasks. Brilliant. Like that a lot. This is a slightly different layout from the diagram you saw earlier, and I've included this because this is kind of our version for Logizone. This is our best practice. It's a little bit different in that we don't have a shared services account. So I'm going to see if I can go all the way back. I should have put them next to each other, really. Then I'd have thought about it, wouldn't I? Can you tell I did this in 45 minutes? So this is kind of the control tower version, and you can see you've got over on AWS Cloud, you've got shared services, logs, and security. Or if you look at that version, you've got logs, audit, and then workloads along with the management account. We have it slightly differently. Come on. Go on. There you go. We have it slightly differently, and that we do, because of the way that our business runs, we import existing accounts from either organizations or single accounts, and we sort of take them in and start to look after them properly. So what we have is we have an account in our own little world, which is great because it means that we're paying for the running of a good chunk of this. For all the infrastructure code, we're paying for that, which is not vast amounts of money, but if we can take £5 off the customer's bill for the purpose of us running the service, great, cool. Then we break it down by various organizational units. So prod for prod, development for everything that isn't prod, legacy. What that is here's your existing account that probably won't play nicely with the new guardrails that we're enforcing. And we don't want to break your current application because that's how you're, well, paying for everything. So we're going to put that there and we're going to ring fence that, and we'll work with you to kind of bring them into a good way of doing things, but we're not going to break it on day one because that won't win us any favors. And then down the bottom, we have a compliance OU, and we like compliance because no one else likes compliance, but we like compliance, pays the bills. And again, backups and security and logs, and then the master account. Yeah, it's slightly different from the default because there's no sort of overall shared services. We've just broken it down a little bit more granularly and have a concept of, which Control Tower doesn't, of we're aware that your organization may not be optimal, because it probably isn't. Most of them aren't. And we're going to work with you to sort of do best practice on a going forwards basis. God, I sound like a salesman. I've been practicing, can you tell? We're going to do best practice going forwards, but we're not going to break what's currently paying all your bills, because nobody wants that. Advantages over Control Tower. It's not Control Tower. Right, next. No, I promise there's more. It's a lot faster. Control Tower is slow as hell. It's really slow. It's been getting better, admittedly, I'm told by people in the community. I haven't tested it. I don't want to. Every time I look at it, I want to go and cry in a corner. It's getting faster, but org formation is quick. It's just quick because it has a state file and it goes, oh, I don't need to do anything for these accounts. Bash, done. Moving on, which is really nice. It's easier to see the internals because you can see the internals. I mean, if you want to go and look at how the XE works, you can. It's all written in Node, I think. So any Node devs kicking about, you can go and decompile the XE or go and look at the code base because it's all there. It's easy enough, but you just install it through NPM. And then in terms of what it's running, there's a reference architecture, which is okay, but it's mostly CloudFormation. So you probably built it, or I did. I built quite a lot of ours. I built all of ours, actually. So yeah, you can see the internals, you know what it's doing, you know how it's doing it, and the logs are a lot more obvious because, well, it has them for starters, and you can kind of see where it's running and the stack that it's fallen over on, which it inevitably will, and so on and so on. What else have I got? Guardrails. So Control Tower has a concept of guardrails, and it calls them guardrails, inventively, but they're managed through Control Tower, and it implements them kind of under the covers. I think it does SCPs, but it's kind of under the covers, and it's all controlled through Control Tower. Our version, we've done it directly in SCPs, so you can, if you really desperately need to, turn one off because everything's broken. Oh yeah, it's because we blocked that off, and then magically it all works. So that's great. We don't recommend doing that, but if we need to in extremis, we can turn a control off. Brilliant. And then in extremis, again, you can run it locally. So Control Tower itself, you have to have access to AWS, you have to log into the console, you have to go into the console and push the buttons. Org formation and logizone is designed to be run through infracode, but in a pinch, you can run the commands locally that would run in the pipeline if there's a code deploy service out, a code pipeline service outage, you could still do it. If there's a Control Tower service outage, you're stuffed. It's not perfect. Testing is everyone familiar with that acronym? Yeah, cool. Don't make me say it on the stream. Testing is a pain. You do need an entire organization to test because your org should be considered production. Even if it's just dev accounts and there might be a workload account somewhere. Oh, that account's production, they're all dev. No, the organization is prod. Your whole org is prod. So if you're doing dev work, and I do quite a bit of this, you need an entire organization to test it on because that's just what the product is. It's built to work with orgs. and I just put money on his credit card. It's fine. And as a result, GitOps is functionally impossible. Everyone familiar with GitOps? Little bit. All right, GitOps, for those that don't know, is a way of working in that you write your code, infra code, or whatever else, you commit to Git, your pipelines run, that your platform team have probably sweated over, magic happens, and your environment gets updated. That's GitOps. You push to Git, you don't run the deployments, pipeline does it. Great. It's functionally impossible to do that because whilst it's all through infra code and you all run it through code commit and code pipeline, a key part of GitOps is being able to do branch-based development. So you push to a dev branch, that runs to a dev environment. You can't really do that. I mean, you can, but it's really awkward. So you can't really do that cross-account when you're looking at an entire organization. So GitOps is really tricky. It's very easy to break things. So this is why we came up with the concept of a legacy OU that has nothing kind of attached to it, because case in point, if you've got, it's not best practice, but if you've got public S3 buckets, for instance, that are serving content publicly, if org formation goes in and says, no more public buckets, it forces them to all be private. And then anything that was looking for that public resource can't get it anymore. Well, you shouldn't have been doing like that, but you broke up production environment. Sorry. Hence the concept of the legacy OU. That's kind of the point of that, but it's very easy to break things. Documentation isn't great. It's getting better, and really it's on my list of things to start contributing to because I am also a community builder for about the next week. Please renew me. I know, and I'm really nervous. I'd have had to keep my other shirt on otherwise. But yeah, that's on my list of things to start contributing to. The reference architecture is okay, but it doesn't work out of the box. And that was kind of one of the points of the reference architecture is it's meant to be, quote, batteries included. That's the term they use. And it doesn't really work out of the box. Needs some work. But it's all a community project. It's mostly done by one bloke. So that's sort of to be expected. And I haven't found a linter. I'm a big fan of a CloudFormation linter because I'm really lazy and I like it to tell me when I've done something wrong. IntelliJ has a great plugin that does linting and does code completion and all the rest of it. But as soon as you put the -OC in the version, it just breaks it because it doesn't understand that, even though it's mostly native CloudFormation, but there's no updated linter for it that I've found. So that's quite painful. And I'm not clever enough to write a linter for IntelliJ. And eventual consistency, that's the last one. That's not org formation so much as AWS or the cloud in general. Everything in the cloud is eventually consistent. You run a command, and within a few seconds, it will get there. But if you're running at faster than human speed, which in this case you probably are, you've vended an account and you've tried to turn something on before the service has become available in the account creation process. That can be kind of painful. I've found a way of doing it, and it's just you just stick a sleep in your pipeline for 30 seconds. But I don't know if I'm allowed to say this or not. I'm going to go with it. Every time you sleep, a DevOps fairy dies. Basically, every time you sleep. So, but that's kind of the only way of doing it because most vended AWS accounts are kind of active and ready to go within about 20 seconds. But if you're not pausing for kind of 20 or 30 seconds, it will just run into something and go, I have no access, that doesn't exist, what are you doing? And then you retry it and it's all magically working. So that's annoying, but that's not an org formation problem so much as an AWS one. Yes, I will shut up now, unless you've got questions. That's it.
Swag for questions.
Hmm?
Swag for questions.
Swag for questions. Anyone's got clever questions? Is your microphone turned on?
No, you can hear my voice, I think. So, a very basic question. Okay. I want to know, where does this control tower sit in AWS?
So you can access the service from any account. It's just a service within AWS.
Okay.
You just search in the console for control tower and you'll find it. The recommendation from the diagram, I might be able to go back and find it. Come on, we'll go all the way back. Really wish I had a laser. So the recommendation is you run control tower from the management account, which is where you do your billing and your users, and control tower. That's it. It's kind of the only things you recommend that they put there.
Okay,
but it runs there.
Yeah. So now suppose, for example, I have an application, okay, which I'm not sure if this is the right question, but if there is an application and I want to use control tower, right? So how does it work with the application,
Doesn't.
or is it part of?
So control
The-
tower is part of the fundamental building blocks of your organization. So if you've
Okay.
built a Laravel app, for argument's sake, it should have and needs no knowledge of control tower, unless you're building something to specifically interact with control tower.
Okay, so basically, it manages your entire organization structure, right?
Spot on, yeah.
Okay, cool. So, one second question was, in the first slide there was something called centralized alerting, right? So,
Yes.
what does that exactly mean in this context?
So in this context, and if I actually, this will let me go back to that diagram. So you see on the side there, there's the security account. You might be able to, can you see that? I mean, I can see it, but I don't know if you can see it. So on the side there, there's the security account. And the idea there is if you get a security alert from, excuse me, guard duty or inspector or whatever, you send an alert on that. But that's just the account responsible for doing it. Every account is sending data to that account. So you've centralized the point at which the data is interrogated and the alerts are generated. That's useful for a few reasons. First, for sanity, so you've just kind of got one place to do it. And second, if you want to export that data into something else, a log management system, Datadog, or Splunk, if you don't like money, then if you don't like money, then it gives you a much easier place to do that because it's all in one place already. You don't have to worry about lots of copying things from bucket to bucket to bucket to get it to kind of go in the right place. It's there. It's just there.
So internally, it sends it to the security account or something, and then from there, if you want, you can ship it to Datadog or something.
Yep.
Okay.
You can do other things as well. You can centralize your application alerting. We don't tend to do that or recommend it because anything bigger than the smallest deployments, that's not going to make sense. Because I've got an alert out of my central alerting channel, and then you've got to really dig into the data to work out what service has fallen over, as opposed to each service being responsible for raising its own alarms. So you could do it, although we don't recommend it.
Okay, cool.
Time for questions.
I mean, we've got enough swag for everyone in the room, so we're good.
I'm just kind of curious because obviously you found the real-time computing problem of script running versus services becoming available. I'm just generally curious, since you found that out, how many DevOps fairies have you killed?
Hang on. 1
Beware, this
million.
is recorded.
Sleeping is the work of the devil, but it's a necessary evil, I think.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I do appreciate it.
So going right back to the beginning of your talk, so it's creating organizations or management that don't suck. So we've got control tower, which is you only get what it says on the tin. And then you've got the new way, the better way, which is obviously a power up to CloudFormation. So I'm trying to work out is that where there's how do you kind of get by? Because coming back to saying that actually there's a lot of things that you need, you don't get, and all that experience, that value add, that knowledge of how to create an organization.
Pay me.
Yeah. So I guess it means that it's not easy, is it? Because you've got a really good tool or capability that with a whole list of drawbacks that you need obviously to work around, whether it's the timing thing or whether it's so what do you think the future is going to be? Is because so
Good question.
just kind of if I frame it, so do you think that AWS is going to invest more time and energy into control tower?
Yes, they already are.
Right.
I mean, they already are. It's a running joke amongst the community. I'm a community builder, but I know a lot of heroes and all the rest of it. The guaranteed way of making AWS solve a problem is to work around it.
Yeah, to do something in the community or to
Basically, yeah.
So the whole kind of landing zone thing is, as you know, it's a fairly overloaded and generic term, but to do it properly, and as you've demonstrated with that, is really a hugely significant thing, isn't it? Because let's face it, if you don't get your landing zone right, then what happens is that most likely whatever's wrong or incorrect or at risk is just going to get cookie cut all over the place. So
Yeah.
so this
Absolutely.
is a hugely significant area, isn't it? So
Yeah, getting it wrong is an amplifier for cock-ups.
Well,
Well, to say that, I'm going with it. I've said it.
yeah.
Getting it wrong is an amplifier for mistakes, because if it's wrong, it will stay wrong until someone else comes along and tears all their hair out and goes, well, what's going on?
Yeah.
In terms of the future, AWS will have been investing in Control Tower more. There was a load of announcements about it at reInvent last year, back tail end of November, early December. So it is improving. In terms of, you know, the title was a bit clickbaity because I like a clickbaity title. But being able to run things through infra code and through pipelines, and okay, you can't do GitOps, but it's all still codified.
Yeah.
You're not having to sit there with a browser window open, which you do with Control Tower. With org formation,
It has to be declarative, doesn't it? I mean, that's the whole point with code, isn't it? So you don't want to sit there and have to press a button on the console. If you can declare, you know, your infrastructure, your organization, whatever it might be, in a meaningful and accurate way, and then run it, then that's exactly where it should be, really.
Yeah, and honestly, my favorite benefit is I can, once I've got it deployed for a customer, and it's always a project because every organization that we come into looks a bit different. So it's not a SaaS product as such. It's always a consultant-led project. But once we've got it up and running, I'd like a new account, please. Okay, I put about 6 lines of YAML in. I hit go. I'm going to make a coffee. And then it's kind of done within 20 minutes. Not enough to think about it.
It's kind of declarative landing zones or landing zone as code, isn't it, really? I mean, maybe that's a bit of a stretch, but doesn't quite work.
What would you call that? Lazac?
No, don't go there. But no, I think it's. I think that it's really good to work through that. But my only concern is what you've done is that it's the iceberg thing, isn't it? Is that you've shown the shape, what's above the water, but the hugely significant work that's been done in the community under the covers.
Oh yeah.
So hopefully there'll be more investment in that community, and it will.
I don't know whether the community gets more investment or not. I don't know. My genuine hope, as much as I hate Control Tower,
right? You know, so it will have the effect of basically improving the landing zone. Sort of declarative aspect.
My genuine hope is Control Tower just gets better. That's my genuine hope, because whilst I've spent literal months of my life building our version, and I don't see it getting better in the next few years, I'd love to just be able to have a Terraform resource for landing zone.
But it's quite a smart idea, isn't it, to basically to make it a better cloud formation, but not cloud formation. It's, I very loosely described it as like a cloud formation power up. In other words, you're taking the same approach, but you're just adding to it rather than just coming something completely different.
Yeah, pretty much. Hence, I call it cloud formation on steroids, because I'm less PC.
Have you come across any scalability issues when it comes to like number of accounts?
No, I've not worked. So our test, actually, that's a lie. That's a lie. It's not a scalability issue so much as a service limit. So our test org has something like 15 accounts in it, because I vend accounts to test new things. And I found a fun bug where certain accounts weren't doing things, but it was only those accounts, and every other account was fine. But whatever. The default limit for new organizations to have accounts is 10. Which is staggeringly low, but there must be a reason. All you do is you go and submit a service request, you have a request limit increase, you put it up to 20 or 100 or 1,000 or whatever. I've only ever gone to sort of 20, 25, and they just approve it. It's not a problem per se, but it's just the default limit is quite low. That's kind of the only issue I've found. I had a chat with Olaf, the chap that kind of runs the project for org formation. And I think one of his orgs is a couple of hundred or maybe 1,000 accounts, and it works across that quite happily. The tool is built with with a mechanism that you can limit the number of accounts that it's running on at any one time. So the default for most of them is 10. So it'll update 10 accounts at a time. So if you've got more than that and your timeout on your pipeline is quite short, you could probably run into a problem. But most pipeline timeouts are a couple of hours. And unless you're building from scratch an org that's several hundred accounts, you're probably fine.
Yeah, fair enough. This is coming from someone that works in an org that has like thousands of accounts, so I don't really work too much with
it's an interesting one when you get to scale. So
yeah,
When did we leave CloudReach? 20.
4 or 5 years ago. 5 years ago.
The NDA's expired. So the it's part of the master services agreement. We couldn't publish anything, but I think that's expired by now. So the biggest landing zone that existed before Control Tower was at BP. I worked on that. That had thousands of accounts because they had this whole concept of account vending, which again, you get through this. Every developer got their own account. You wanted an account to do stuff, there you go. But it was limited in terms of the services that you could use. There were permissions boundaries, which are horrid things to write. It's like IAM, but backwards. It's just, and we only enable sort of 30 or 40 services or whatever. But at scale, I can see eventually you're going to hit a scaling problem. But in big enterprise, that tends to be handled by a centralized platform team.
Yeah, the platform team deals with all of this. They're like 10, 20 people that at the moment are just saying, cool, here's a new account, or please migrate your transit gateways because they're getting old and costing us a ton of money.
Yeah, pretty much. When you get to that kind of scale, you actually have good quality technical account managers and stuff that work with you, particularly if you're paying for business support. And I know a few TAMs, and they are genuinely sharp people. They are genuinely smart people. And at that scale, you've got one. It's just yours. They only work with you. You only work with them. That's it. When you're at the sort of scale that we deal with, you probably don't pay for support. If you do, you're not paying a lot for it because you've got the bargain basement tier. So you either don't have a TAM or your TAM is looking after about 100 people.
I know from experience that our company has maybe 3.
Yeah, probably.
Which is a little terrifying when you think about it. Anyone else?
Are you going to talk about how many moths I've killed?
No.
I like a moth. I'll put them outside. Spiders, though. Spiders can die.
Really? I'll differ with you there. Just thinking in terms of where this is heading, where Control Tower is heading, this CloudFormation and stereo, it kind of makes perfect sense, albeit as we've seen that there are bumps and lumps and limitations and some challenges related to the way that this is progressing. What is it that you're seeing in Control Tower? Is it kind of developing in parallel? Is it a little bit behind? Is it diverging? Because what I'm thinking ahead to is,
what's the technical deck to apples comparison? I don't think.
Yeah,
it's chalk and chicken liver pate. They're kind of trying to achieve the same thing.
Yeah,
but they're doing it very, very differently. Control Tower is kind of the prescriptive AWS do it this way.
Yeah,
ArcFormation is a community project. It's a brilliant community project,
change the license now, or not now. So
you might be thinking of Terraform.
Terraform license change.
Yeah, there's nothing to do with this.
It's not new. That's why.
There's no company behind ArcFormation is the thing. I think they're looking for sponsors, but there's no big firm behind it.
Change it, the fork the Terraform now.
Open Tofu, you mean?
Open Tofu.
Yeah. So
it's an exciting question. You talked about the Terraform.
Yeah.
And the license is an exciting question. For example, in AWS, in a Vimoto, 2 or 3 years ago, my boss asked me which operating system we use in our cloud. And we used CentOS,
I knew you were going to say that.
And I'm thinking about it, okay, I saw a lot of companies, they used it's a tricky way. The Red Hat is a so expensive company. And a lot of companies, the big ones, use this trick. I buy 5 or 6 original Red Hat and use 100 or 200 CentOS system. It's the same. I get a support and I can use it. And in the cloud, in AWS and similar like this, a lot of people try to use these tricks, but if you are a big tech company, for example, Deutsche Telekom, we can pay to the Red Hat. if a lot of people, the thousands of people, use this trick, they don't buy a one Red Hat license. That means the Red Hat changed this license policy. That's why I told my boss, because the question is, we use a CentOS, and in our version 8, we need to change to a Fedora. That means it's named a CentOS, but it's a Fedora.
I'm familiar.
And I'm thinking about it, and I hate the Oracle company. I have a reason why.
Oracle Linux.
Yes, and I'm advised we need to use the Oracle Linux 8 because the Oracle business based on the Oracle database system and the Java, and they need our operating system too. That's why Oracle bought some enterprises before. That means if I choose Oracle Linux 8, I get the support for free because it's not my business. The database big rich companies can pay to the Oracle for the support, and I get it for free. It's not exactly true because I installed some software. I'm not sure what was it. And
I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off a little bit. This sounds like a really interesting conversation to have.
Oh, okay,
but,
sorry.
Are we approaching a question?
I'm just talking about the Terraform and the license.
Oh, right.
And the licenses. I think it's important question when you try to thinking about the future.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair one. So in terms of the control tower side of things, there isn't really a license. It's closed source. It's just an AWS service. On the org formation side of things, it's currently, I think it's on the Apache license because it's just a community project. Whether or not there would be a license change in the future, get your crystal ball out. It's not backed by a company. So the cynic in me thinks the HashiCorp license to business, whatever it is, was a prep for a sale. That's what the cynic in me thinks. Org formation currently is still a community project. It's not an open source product built by a company. It's a community project. There's no one company behind it. There's a bloke that does it in his spare time, I think. And maybe his employer sponsors some of his time, I don't know. But it's not got corporate backing, as it were.
Okay, but
it might change in the future. I don't know.
Okay, but it is a community project. It's not enough because you need to pay the developers. You know, if I'm
pretty sure the developers of curl were never paid.
It's an important thing, I think.
I mean, no, I'm not disagreeing with that. It's just, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't gaze into what this project is going to do with this license in 6 months, a year, 10 years. As it currently stands, it's Apache license. Go run with it. They're not making any money, and there's no model, as far as I'm aware, for them to make money. It's all just kind of free, open source. Do what you want.
Open source, that means it's free.
I know it doesn't mean free. That's why I said it twice. Open source doesn't mean free, and free doesn't mean open source.
I know, free and free.
It's free as in beer, not free as in speech.
We use two different words for this. Free as a beer, free Sabbath or Indian.
Yeah, so there's not really a support model behind it. There's a community and there's a Slack community, but that's about as far as it goes because it's just a project. There's no company behind it. There's no support team. Olaf is the support team, and I've helped out occasionally, but that's about the size of it.
Oh, we can discuss it later, I think.
Yeah, that's a pub conversation. Microphone.
Do you have any case studies of how organizations have benefited from, moving away from the control tower over to, anything?
No. If you Google org formation, you will find the blog post on AWS's website. about org formation. I don't know of any case studies of people moving away from control tower and using org formation. It's worth noting that org formation can work with control tower. So you can strip control tower back to its barest essentials and just use it for account vending, and then get org formation to do everything else. So it's capable of working with it. But no, I don't have any case studies.
Could you talk a bit about the obvious cost benefits? Like,
Realistically, it's engineer
if I'm a
time.
business, right? What's the incentive outside of the obvious technical benefits that it's a better way of doing things?
I've just spent 40 minutes doing that. It's engineer time primarily, because once it's done and it's written, you kind of don't have to sit there and look after it. It just sort of does it. You want a new account, it takes you 5 minutes, and it will take 20 minutes to vend or 30 minutes to vend, but you're not sitting there with it. It can just look after itself. Control tower, you have to hold its hand quite a lot. Certainly when I last used it. That's kind of the primary one. And realistically, if you want to talk about cost benefit analysis, the most expensive resource any company on the planet has is its staff. So if you can get them doing something else rather than sitting there watching a progress bar that then breaks, more the better. The second most expensive is somewhere for staff to sit, and then it's your infrastructure after that. But yeah, it's in engineer time, realistically.
Is it
Microphone.
sorry, not to oversimplify, but is it just a case of getting a better landing zone faster?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And it's easier to work with longer term as well,
Sure.
because that's kind of the key benefit.
So-
It takes a couple of days in a complicated environment to get it going. But once it is, like I say, it's like the quickest I've had an account vend, and I did 4 at the same time, was like 25 or 30 minutes.
So a better landing zone faster, but with some assembly required. In other words, you obviously you need that expertise to be able to deal with the caveats that you've mentioned.
All of the cloud is some assembly required.
Oh, it is, yeah. But I think if saying is that if control, then the drawbacks of control tower are pretty clear, right? It's inflexible and slow.
Yeah.
And you don't need that, right?
Pretty much, yeah. It's faster. It may or may not be cheaper in engineer time, depending on how complicated you want to go. We spent 2-4 weeks, so a couple of sprints of my time productizing it. And I've written lots of things to make the deployments faster and easier and onboard customers into our way of working easier. But that's very, what's the word they use? It's very opinionated. Here's how we do it.
So as organizations grow in their use of the cloud, more accounts, whether it's 10 or 1,000, then they're going to want more stuff faster in a more templatized or rigorous way, following a standard or a better landing zone. And I guess this is one way forward, isn't it, for now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd love to have, and Control Tower has started to expose these now. This was kind of the big gripe I had, was I'd love to have an API to interact with, so that people that are lumbered with things like ServiceNow can just go, raise ticket for account. It goes through ServiceNow's god-awful workflows, and an account happens. Currently, and Control Tower is starting to expose those now, and it's starting to get there. Org formation, it's raise a ticket, and engineer adds about 6 lines of YAML, or you could kludge together a workflow that involves using YQ and grepping and things to do it. But, that's nirvana.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Please let me shut up. Please, sir, I don't want any more. Any more for any more? Or are we going to give Carl?
Let's do the quiz.
Okay.
Because we're going way over time.
I usually run it, but I'm running out of voice.
How do you want to do it?
I'll sit down and heckle.
Okay, fair enough. Give me the mic then. You don't have the mic for heckling.
Yeah, I do.
Right. You just need to swipe out. Yeah, I can do it that way. Can't I? Had a link in the. It's there. Ooh. And of course, since I had it all slickly set up, and John pressed the wrong button, so. Right. Have you all done Kahoot quizzes before? I'm afraid we don't have the whole mic yet. Sorry, I forgot the mic. So have we all done Kahoot quizzes before? You can go to kahoot.it or you can scan the QR code, which will take you straight there. If you're just browsing to kahoot.it, put in the game pin 2181728. And I'll just wait for some players, because without players, it's going to be a very boring quiz. Here we go. We've got a couple of players. I don't think I can use that, though, can I? I'll have to. Yeah. I don't know. I did it on the bus on the way down. Yeah, I'm hoping we turned off the auto thing, because otherwise it goes a bit fast, doesn't it? So is anyone else trying to join that wants to join in the quiz, or we just got there? We've got some more. Yeah, I was going to say, because we've only got 3, then it's the top 3 people. I'll just give you the swag now. We can all go to the pub. Anyone else still trying to join, or is everyone in that wants to be in the quiz? Oh, internet. Okay, are we, oh, something happened. Are we waiting for anyone else? Anyone? Or is everyone? Ah. See, I thought moi was Moira, but it's obviously not. It's Moira that's struggling to get in. So there we go. And we've got the winner as well. Let's hope they do. Right. So shall we crack on? Let's crack on. Oh, let's not do that. Let's do that. So the way that it's not as I described. You've got to tell us whether each of these services begins with Amazon or AWS, because as you'll know, lots of services are either Amazon this or AWS that. So every question, the option is Amazon or AWS is 3, Amazon S3 or AWS S3. The answer is Amazon S3. Let's go next. Oh no, that's me magic corners. There we go. Moira, it took a long time to get into the quiz, but is in the lead at the moment. So the internet's obviously working well. Lambda, AWS or Amazon Lambda? Oh, we've got 8 answers. So let's go next. Moira's held on to the lead. Excellent. I'm getting good at this. I got straight into the next question. SQS. Is it Amazon SQS or AWS SQS? Oh, split the room on that one, but it was Amazon. So anybody who answered Amazon is correct. And Moira's lost the lead. Nitz is in the lead now. EC2. Amazon EC2 or AWS EC2? Split the room again. The answer is Amazon. I hope so. The answer that John put in the quiz is Amazon. Are you playing? Oh, that's good. Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely cheating. ECS, Amazon ECS or AWS ECS? And the answer is, of course, Amazon. It is on fire. Amazon EKS or AWS EKS, Elastic Kubernetes Service, of course. And it is, in fact, Amazon. Mostly got that one wrong. Moira's climbing back, still on the podium. Bedrock, one of the newest services. Is it Amazon Bedrock or AWS Bedrock? It's Amazon Bedrock. API access to all of the AI models. KCD is on a bit of a streak now. Almost, yeah, it's very close, isn't it? I'm not going to try and work out how many points behind, but you can see it's close. Step functions. Amazon step functions or AWS step functions? And it was, in fact, AWS step functions. Question 9 of 20, we're getting there. SageMaker. Is it Amazon SageMaker or AWS SageMaker? Oh, most of you got that one wrong. It's actually Amazon SageMaker. Halfway there. Elemental Media Convert. It's for converting media, elementally. But oh, we've got a new leader. Fizz has surged into the lead. Fizz is on fire. Media Convert. I know what it is. Yeah. Cost Explorer. Is it Amazon Cost Explorer or AWS Cost Explorer, where you can go to try and figure out how to make your scary AWS bill smaller? It is, of course, AWS Cost Explorer. Let's see what that's done to the leaderboard. Nothing. Deep Racer, the machine learning driven racing car that you can race around a virtual track or a real track at AWS events. And it is, of course, AWS Deep Racer. And that's done nothing to the leaderboard that I can see. 13 of 20, we are getting there. IQ. Is it Amazon IQ or AWS IQ? We're getting the hang of this now. The answers are coming in thick and fast. And Moi has gone into the lead. Well done, Moi. Toi. AWS Amplify or Amazon Amplify? Most of you got that one right. Nitz is on fire now with a surge into second place. It's coming back again. Amazon Macy or AWS Macy? It's a nice... I have no idea. I thought that's what this quiz was. That's how I introduced it. I got it wrong. But that's what happens when you do everything at the last minute. So again, most of you got that right. So, oh, Sugar, new leader after that one. Grafana. Amazon managed Grafana or AWS managed Grafana? Oh, only one person got that right. That could have changed the leaderboard. And it has. It was back in the lead again. Well done, Toi. Snowball. Amazon or AWS Snowball? Anybody know what the Snowball is? Physical device for shipping data from your on-premise data center to the cloud. Oops. There used to be a snowmobile, which was a articulated semi-truck, as they call them in America, or an articulated lorry, and they've just retired that service because nobody needed to move that much data from on-premises into the cloud. Sorry, Moi. It's no longer Toi. Fizz has made it into the lead. 3 more questions to go. AWS or Amazon Device Farm for testing your mobile apps? Come on, number 8. Well done. I was wondering what happened there. Split the room on that one. Was, of course, AWS Device Farm. Fizz still in the lead with 2 questions to go. It's exciting, isn't it? I'm excited. Database migration service for migrating your databases to the cloud. Is it Amazon or AWS? Great. Most of you got that one right. Oh, somebody chose not to answer or dropped out of the quiz. I don't know. Fizz is on fire in the lead with 1 question to go. Final question, ground station. Is it AWS ground station or Amazon ground station? There we go. It was AWS. So most of you got it wrong. So the big reveal. Here is the podium. In third place with 12 out of 20, it's Sugar. Who's Sugar? Woo! In second place, sorry about that, it's Nits. And in the lead, it is Fizz. Here you go, John. Hand out swag to the winners. Well done, everyone. Hope you enjoyed that. Just a bit of fun. Sorry, it wasn't quite the comedy drag theatre act that we promised you, but unfortunately, he broke a leg. So, yeah, you got me instead. So that is it. We're bang on time, funnily enough. So I don't know how we managed that. So thank you all for joining us this evening. Whoops. How do I get back on there? Oh, doesn't matter. I haven't got any more slides anyway. I was just going to put the user group slide back on. So thank you for joining us for the 5th meetup of the AWS Brighton user group. We'll be back in July. Don't know the date exactly, but check the meetup group, sign up, and we'll see you then. Cheers. Thank you, everyone.